Hello and welcome to UC Trends 2024. I'm Tom Wright and I'm delighted to be joined by Joe from Nectar. How's it going, Joe?
Excellent. Thanks for having me on, Tom.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And we're going to be talking about UC service management today, particularly in the context of hybrid work. And you're perfectly qualified to talk about this actually, because you're fresh off the bat of a UC award for Best Service Management Platform. So congratulations for that. And I think perhaps a nice place to start would be if you could just give us a bit of an overview of yourself, your role, and Nectar as a business.
Absolutely. So first, again, thank you again for having us on, and really appreciate the time and work with you guys. You do an excellent job in covering the industry and helping
Thank you.
customers get knowledge. Background. So I'm in this industry. I used to have hair when I started, so it's been a while. So um, yeah, I'm co-founder of Nectar, Chief Technology Officer. So Nectar entered the market. Um, in 2005 is when we started thinking about the problem of helping customers move to converged networks and helping them go voice over IP and the challenges. And we introduced our first product commercially in customer environments in 2006, and then we opened our channel and started providing service, starting supporting the Avaya service partner market in 2008. So it's been an interesting journey. Been involved in multiple versions of transformations from truly analog and digital ISDN PBXs to the converged network and centralized systems, obviously through all the maturations. And with that, we have a wealth of experience in both what the industry considered unified communications or UCaaS today, as you look at cloud and as a service models and the contact center. Um, a lot of our customers are both, and we focused on digital experience. So digital experience is really about more than just monitoring and alerting. It's taking a more holistic approach to, is the employee getting the right service? Is the customer getting the right experience? Um, and you look more holistically across headsets, computers, soft clients, hard clients, end-to-end session border controllers, the PSTN, the entire life cycle. And again, looking at it from in a contact center, we look at it from an agent perspective, from a conference room. What's the experience of a employee going into a conference room and using Zoom or Teams or WebEx from when they're in the office, and all those go into on kind of overall experience management, which incorporates a lot more than just monitoring.
Great. So as you said, you've got a wealth of experience to draw upon here, and I think a good place to start with this discussion would be: could you talk through the challenges you're seeing enterprises and businesses of all sizes face at the moment when it comes to managing their UC estate?
Yeah, and it's interesting because the problem, as you think you indicated, changes depending on the size of the organization. Nectar has two primary types of customers. One is large global enterprises, mid to large global enterprises that we work with either directly or through our channel partner community, service providers. And then we have a very strong managed service provider ecosystem. And the interesting thing about that is that Nectar provides a very wide product set, meaning we can look at a lot of different technologies in the unified communications ecosystem across lots of vendors, and we can do it at depth, meaning pretty down, so we can geek out with packets on the wire with our probes and SIP ladder diagrams to very high level analytics business dashboards. And so that lends itself extremely well to those two customer segments. And with there, what we see is a common trend is in the large enterprise customers, um, they are in a continuous state of transformation. And you think about the pandemic greatly accelerated everyone's transformations, and that was the one thing we all seen. We've all spent a lot of years talking, the last couple of years talking about how that migrations got pushed forward. A lot of organizations now are dealing with the final pieces of that transformation, whether it's taking additional PST premise assets. They might where they're saying these workloads are better situated for cloud. We've seen some customers actually look at some of the cost structures around Teams voice and saying, well, maybe some of those how do we optimize some of those costs out on a per user basis. I think the larger enterprises deal with the fact that they have multiple platforms across, and they're not one. There's I look at our enterprise customers, and they typically have 2 to 3 UCaaS platforms in their environment, plus a contact center. And if they're a financial services, they may have something like a trade or voice platform. So they're wrangling with, how do I transform all these services over, dealing with multiple clouds? How do they deal with service delivery at a global basis? And looking at managed service providers doing it themselves, and this flux, um, and doing it in an efficient manner, and that's across the board. And every enterprise is in generally some state of change. Whereas the SMB market, small to medium business, sometimes it's simpler. It's a lot easier for them to kind of move to a cloud service, um, and find out and have a single vendor. It's very common you'll find a single vendor in the smaller customers. Um, Maybe they have some basic contact centers all they need. Whereas the enterprise customers are particularly, and that's why the managed service providers, which need to support multiple swim lanes, multiple business sectors, multiple types of customers, wind up with looking for service delivery platforms like Nectar that can handle Cisco and Avaya and Microsoft and Zoom and Genesys and Five9s and Poly and HP and Oracle and Ribbon. You go through the smorgasbord of vendors that they need to support, and that's the same challenge large enterprise has.
Great. So there's a couple of things in there I'd like to go into a bit more detail, if that's okay. The first is you mentioned the pandemic, which has certainly accelerated hybrid work, and I think we're in this phase now where lots of businesses are grappling with their return to office policy. I just wonder if you could talk through what you're seeing there and some of the challenges that they're having, kind of getting these systems ready for hybrid work and coming back to the office.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there's a common thread across the board with return to office. One is there was a lot of infrastructure that was ignored, and rightly so. Why would we do Wi-Fi upgrades when no one was in the office? Conference room, video room estates, right? A lot of, I'll use the word legacy or, non-native experiences, whether it's, if you're a Microsoft organization or a Zoom or a Cisco or you're both. A lot of our large customers, because Zoom had a very strong outgrowth in the consumer market when the pandemic started. So you find comfort level. So you see, it's not uncommon to see in a lot of our large customers, they'll use Zoom publicly facing for engagements with clients, and then Teams inwardly facing because it replaced Skype. And there's a kind of battle between which those two platforms. So customers have to deal with that. Now they got these rooms. People go to the office, and how do they have the same experience when they're in an office? So you're seeing huddle rooms, private office spaces, needs, and then this transformation saying, oh, well, they go into their rooms and the rooms aren't working properly. So there's a big focus on room health, room upgrades. What's the priority? Are these rooms the right size? Do we need larger conference rooms, smaller conference rooms? So there's definitely a big emphasis we see across the board on health and monitoring of the digital rooms and collaboration rooms and huddle rooms and a tech refresh going on. Um, a lot of, because of hybrid, people have flex workspace. So where are they going to work from when they go to the office? Is the wireless up? Is the wireless good? Video is taken off quite a bit. And video uses a lot more bandwidth. So are the challenges on the network? And people say, hey, you know what? I work better when I'm home. I have less bandwidth issues than in the office. So certainly companies are looking to make any investment they can to make the office experience a good one, particularly if they're trying to drive people back. I think you see they don't want to give workers an excuse to go home, say, hey, the video doesn't work right in the office. I can't do my video calls. So there's definitely a lot of investments and strategy going on across the board to help manage this expense. And then the other challenge is, are there as many IT people in the office when they're having these problems? So getting someone to look at a room, how to do remote diagnostics, remote support, quality issues. Tooling is really important because the IT person may not be in the office that day, that the people are there are having issues.
So there's a lot to think about here. There's lots of challenges that businesses are facing. Perhaps we could go into some of the solutions. How are you at Nectar helping them grapple with some of these challenges they're working through?
So, the first is we've made a lot of investments to break the problem down to kind of what's the device or the UC platform, and then telemetry. Is it, meaning that can we collect information? So if you take a step back, Nectar very much looks a little bit like an IoT model where every device is a sensor to us. This headset is sending out information in real time about the position of the microphone, the boom arm. It's picking up background noise. So it's got a lot of interesting information. How do you make it actionable and intelligible? That's where the real, information for information's sake is. I like to say it's easy to collect data, making it actionable, intelligible, driving business outcomes. is where the real art comes into it. So it starts with making sure that you understand how to collect all the information from all the relevant areas. If someone's working from home or from a remote office, can you understand their bandwidth, the health of their network, the device itself, and then you say, well, up the stack to the communications application, to the devices, to the cloud service provider. And then you're truly looking at it end to end. And one of the things I'll say to customers sometimes, and they get a lot chuckle at, is if a bad experience is a crime, who are the suspects? How do you understand what is the cause of that bad experience? And root cause analysis is really mathematical solving. Is you need information about everything involved to figure out what it isn't or what it is. If I can say it's not this, we know it's not that. We have very good telemetry that says that you can rule out things. Like I call it the big left or right. If you could say it's not a network issue, that is a huge world off to one side to focus on what some other things it might be. So it's really about collecting the information, organizing it, and then presenting it in a way that is about how the user would see it. So meaning we're in a meeting or a session. So how do you orientate all the information that can be used for both analytics, reporting, license management, cost management, tech troubleshooting? There's lots and lots of metadata that drives lots of business angles besides just troubleshooting. And that's one of the misnomers about digital experience platforms. It's just for troubleshooting. No, there's a lot more you can do with it from asset management and so forth that drives business value.
Great. And one area we haven't touched upon yet, Joe, is AI. There's going to be lots of talk around AI this year. I wonder if you could talk through how you think AI might impact, Nectar as a business, perhaps service management in general.
Great question. So the challenge with the world we're in is it's very complex. If you take a step back and we start talking about multi-cloud, we talked earlier about transformation. So customers find themselves now transforming between premise and cloud, multiple clouds. Their premise system, likely, if you think back to, say, a customer who was a major Avaya customer or a major Cisco on-premise customer, as they migrate to the cloud, and different workloads and transform their UCaaS and their CCaaS, that one system may get split to multiples. They may find themselves with Teams and Genesis or some other, take, for example, those two clouds. And then they have okay, what are they doing with their PSTN calls? Are they going to keep their phone numbers? Are they going to port their phone numbers? Is their service provider going to, going back to your question earlier about some of the top challenges, AI has an opportunity to take some of these challenges and help the machine analyze patterns and help people understand what it is or isn't in a more efficient manner. I think there's a lot of opportunity because when you think about the world where you have SIP calls you have carrier calls coming in, let's use PSTN. You got your carriers, then you have your session border controllers that either the carrier is providing as a service, the customer is, it's dedicated, it's managed. There's a lot of different permutations of that. Then there's multiple cloud providers. It could be split to some calls go to one cloud provider, some calls go to another cloud provider. And then there's the whole user domain, wireless, home, where they working from, headsets. How do the AI and machines have an opportunity to look at that from an AI operations perspective and really help explain what it isn't or what it is, draw smart insights to focus people. And ultimately, I think there's an opportunity where the machine can actually help end users solve some problems where the assistant can say, hey, X and Y is causing your issues. We know this because it has access to the fact that we know that at scale, and there's value in crowdsourcing. So one of the interesting things about companies like ourselves that have lots of information is you can learn. There's trending, like Microsoft and all the cloud providers analyze constantly what's going on, and they can look at and say, well, the machine can say, well, service provider X in a certain region's having a bad day because we can see a pattern across multiple customers that are coming from a certain area, right? And so that's an opportunity to get proactive and to maybe tell those customers, right? So you need machines to do that. And I think there's so many use cases around AI. I mean, everyone's talking about, knowledge workers and self-learning. That's great, but there's a lot of lower hanging fruit, I think, in driving efficiencies in service delivery, driving cost out of supporting hybrid work and in operations. And that those are the things that you'll see a lot of, and continue to evolve.
Yeah, I think it's certainly going to be a big year for AI, and that actually leads me nicely into my final question, Joe. I wonder if, to finish, if you could maybe give us some clues or some hints about what we can expect to see from Nectar as we move through 2024.
Yeah, and we're hard at work in some key areas, and definitely AI and machine learning is targeted in with the how to take the wealth of information that we have and have that information not be data for data's sake, but drive real value to a customer, as we said, and looking at um, cloud impact on users, looking at machine learning and bringing that down and delivering real driving cost out of operations and support. Continued support of key vendors as clients continue to migrate. It's important that we continue to onboard strategic vendors. So we say, okay, if we see customers, so you'll see us expand coverage to more clouds providers, because it's in depth. Um, there's standards out there today, but the reality is when you really want to add a lot of value to a specific platform, like use contact center or UCaaS, like if you want to add a lot of value to Zoom or Microsoft, the UCaaS world or WebEx calling, you have to integrate with those manufacturers' APIs at a very deeper level, and then take that information and tie it tight in with the other data sets to then help drive better business outcomes. And one of the things we also are talking to customers about is how can we help them understand collaboration trends? Is there some value in the connected employee experience? Do companies who collaborate better, does that deliver better outcomes to their business customers? And can you see insights? Now, for example, do your developers ever communicate with anyone out of development? So is there value in helping customers understand how they're communicating internally? Not just does it work, but is there good collaboration taking place across different teams? So again, lots and lots of ways to use the data that's already present to drive business value and better outcomes.
Great. Well, it sounds like there's a lot to think about, but also a lot of opportunity, and we'll certainly be keeping an eye out for any news coming out of Nectar. But in the meantime, Joe, thanks so much for joining us. It's been great talking to you.
Likewise, thanks for the time.
And thank you everyone for watching. Remember, you can follow the whole UC Trends series on uctoday.com and by following the hashtag UCTrends24. That's it for me, and we'll see you next time.